Hello paper crafters, I'm Sunny Sky and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in the US. And this is the card we're making today. It is the Twist and Pop card. So you'll see that as the inside opens, it turns around 90 degrees. So there's a lot of detail in this card. It's going to take a little bit more time than usually we take in my videos, but I will cut corners as far as your time where I can. And so let's get started on the construction of this card. So here are all the items that we're using for this card today. This pop-up card using the Rooted in Nature bundle. We're using the dies as well as a stamp set, a couple of the Grapefruit Grove and Blackberry Bliss. Okay, here are all your cardstock sizes. We have quite a few today. There are 5 sheets of this 3.5 by 2.5. I have 3 in Designer Series paper and 2 in Whisper White. One is for the card, the other is for the scrap for the greeting on the front. In addition, you'll need 2 other scrap pieces of paper, about 1/4 of a sheet of cardstock that size, in Rich Razzleberry and Whisper White. And this is Grapefruit Grove, the full card. The soft suede sheets, we have 2 of those, and let me show you how you're going to score those. So you'll want to write down these measurements. Basically, this sheet that's 3 3/4 by 11, you're simply scoring in half and then in halves again, so in quarters. And we're going to do a mountain valley fold with it. So that's a simple scoring piece. This piece you're going to score in half both ways. And remember, you can always pause the video to get those dimensions again. Score in half both ways. Then you're going to mark in 2.5 inches from each end. Mark the points. And then score between those 2 points. And we will be folding on those scores as well. So this mechanism here is what makes the card work. And when you're scoring this, I find this a little difficult to remember how to fold it. Once you've got it all scored, you are wanting the outsides to come in and the middles to come out. And that's going to create sort of like a paper airplane. You need this space in the middle, this gap in the center, because that's where your card flips through. This first sheet of scored paper is going to go between the 2 sides, and this one is white here so that you can see it better in my sample. You see how it's on top of this side, but under on the other side. And that allows this to open and turn diagonally. Okay, we're going to start with this fancy part first, the fold itself, so you can see how that's constructed. You're taking your full card, and we're going to go ahead and glue this all together. So fold this in half. You've already got your scoring in the center. If you haven't then do that. This piece here with all these folds, you need to burnish this very well. You want this to be very flexible. Okay, I've burnished this going both directions on all of these score lines. Now it's time for me to create that paper airplane. So the outsides, you're going to do a valley fold, and these should open up, and you're doing kind of like a house, or sort of looks like a paper airplane. All right. Now what you want to do is glue one of these triangles down. So find the center of your card. You can measure it. I just eyeball it. And you want this tip to go kind of up in the center. I'm using liquid glue here because it's strong and it gives me a little leeway time. So once I have it in the center, I'm just adhering it down. Let it sit for a minute to dry. And then we've got to attach the other triangular side as well. So I glued down the one side. Now I'm going to add glue to the other. Now I'm going to let that dry, and we're going to create our little mountain valley section here. Because I have all these score lines marked on here, I'm going to go ahead and glue my layers on the other side. You don't have to layer on this. You could stamp directly on it, but I've chosen to layer on it. So 4 of these are for the panels for this. I'm going to set this one aside. And I'm going to get my Grapefruit Grove ink and the Great Tree Ring stamp, and stamp that on one of these. Because it's a solid image, I just give it a second to collect all that ink. Now Blackberry Bliss, just have a grating I'm going to set in the center of the rings. Now you absolutely could use any designer series paper in here, but I really like this paper that is part of this suite. So I've now got all my layers attached on here, and we're now going to adhere to this card. I haven't created the front yet. You'll also see in my original sample that I showed you white cardstock, and I did a layer of designer series paper. I decided to just go with a straight color because that way this finished card is going to have a Grapefruit Grove rim that will match the greeting on the front. It's also sturdier than your Whisper White basic cardstock. So we're altering up slightly from the sample that I showed you, but I did use the same papers just to help keep down confusion. Alright, so this sheet here, I do have some words, so I want to make sure that it's right side up. If I will turn it, there's my right side up, so that it sits on the top of the card there. I'm just going to have it fit on the inside of the card. I'm just going to glue one side down now. So I'm going to glue one side, and you can see that this layer is not all going to be attached to that little booklet, just the end. So if you glue just on a square section, if you choose a square section at the corner there, you won't go too far away with your glue. So just however wide that is, that's 1.5 inches wide, you're just going to glue a square about that width. And just fold this over on itself. Okay, and you see that glue spot is going to land up on my booklet. I'm just going to sit and let that dry for a second. Okay, it's had a little minute to dry, and you see my book is now attached to that corner that we glued down. Okay, and basically why you put the book on the edge there is just so that it doesn't stick out of the card when the card is closed. Laying it down and gluing that piece on top is going to make sure that you've got it in the right spot so your card will close. Now we're going to do the other side. And remember, this booklet goes between these two sides. Okay, one is laying on top and one is underneath. You see that? So, and because it's one is on one side and one on the other, then when you open it, it flips it over. Does the twist, the pop and twist. Okay, so we need to put the glue on this side here. Again, just on a square section at the end there. And this time the booklet is going to come down to the bottom of the card there. Close it. And just give that glue a moment to dry. Now we're ready to do stamping and embossing. This Rooted in Nature set has coordinating framelits. I'm also using a stitched oval die for the greeting. We're using several of these images and dies. We're going to use both of the single leaves, also the embossed leaves, and the triple single leaves and triple embossed leaves. Also wanted to show you this set. It's pretty much like a puzzle to get all these wood blocks in here. So when I first opened up the set, I took a piece of vellum and I laid the vellum on top of the blocks and just kind of marked with a Sharpie where the breaks in the wood blocks were, and then came back and stamped the images on those sections once I got them. Once I decided which ones went where. And that way I don't have to figure out the puzzle each time I use this. So right now I'm going to get these leaves out, and I could find those, but if I took all of these out, it would be very hard to fit them all back in, except I have my handy dandy little cheat sheet back there. Stamped my images, and I did want to mention that this is rich Razzleberry cardstock, but this is Blackberry Bliss ink that I'm using. When you get the designer series papers, all the colors that are used in the papers, see there's that sheet that we use for this card, just wonderful bright colors on this paper. But the back sheet, the cardstock that backs it when you get it, lists all the ink / cardstock colors that coordinate with this. So we do have both of these lovely purples in this set. So we're going to do 2 each of the leaves. I stamped, and then I stamped again without re-inking. And I did that for all 3 images in that Blackberry Bliss. Just added a little bit of washi tape just to keep my die from moving around. Sometimes it moves around a little bit when you get on the big shot. So, and we're also going to be embossing these dies, these embossing dies, and cutting them out as well. And I will cut these out before I emboss them just because I think it does the embossing a little bit better. But I just want to remind you how to use these new embossing mats that came from Stampin' Up. So you have your regular platform, one cutting pad, then use your silicone mat. In this case, I'm choosing to use the thicker one so I can get a deeper impression. Then the cardstock, and then your embossing dies, embossing side down. And then you put the mat that comes with the embossing mats on top. Run that through your Big Shot. You don't need a second cutting mat. We're just using one cutting mat on this sandwich because this is thick like a second cutting mat would be, but it just gives a nice smooth impression for the other side of the die to make sure it embosses. Okay, I've done all my die cutting, and out of my rich razzleberry, I forgot to tell you I was also going to cut an oval. That doesn't show up in our design. We simply use it as a backboard for the design. It's very handy. Also, I have previously embossed first and then cut, and today I cut first and then embossed, and it lined up, it came out of alignment while I was under the things. Tip for you is emboss first and then cut. I thought embossing first and then cutting, it might smush down some of the embossing, but it will eliminate this where your embossing doesn't quite come off perfectly. But part of these leaves are going to be back behind other things, so that really is going to be okay for us today. So we have our doily, Pearlized doily, and I've cut it into two pieces, not in half, but like 2/3 and 1/3, kind of. And we're just going to use this as our base, just so we have something behind all these designs that we've cut out. So I'm just going to get some glue on here. And my glue is running out. I need to get a new bottle. And I'm just getting everything somewhat behind there. Now, this is kind of an ugly side to that, but I'm okay with that because I'm going to hide it with some leaves. And so as long as some of it is back in here with the glue on it, and that didn't get too much, so I'm going to add a little more. And we'll just have the edges of the leaves that can cover this ugly end, like this here. Now I've covered up that ugly end. And cover up that end there. Get my embossed leaf. One thing I will note with the leaves is that, remember, whatever's in the purple is not going to show because we're going to put this right on top. So it's going to cover up everything in the center. So we kind of want things to stick out from there a little bit. These two leaves here, there is a different end to them. There's the stem end and the tip of the leaf. So you just want to be aware of that as you are putting your die onto where you have your stamped image, just so you get the best impression of it. Okay, I think we'll put that over there, and I'll go ahead and glue this on. I used paper I had already stamped and restamped it. Well, that's the thing about cardstock, right? I'm just going to get some more adhesive here, and I've saved out one leaf. I want to put one leaf on the top just for some extra dimension. And so I'm just kind of estimating because I can't really see that Razzleberry oval under there anymore, but it just kind of sandwiches everything together. Okay, there's my back. Put one more leaf here on the front. And I think I'll put it right down there. And then I'm just going to add a few pearls. We have a new tool coming out in the catalog that comes out September 5. And it's similar to this one that I've had for several years. And this one is just handy to get kind of little pearls and things. A lot of times you see me using my scissors to get things off of the sheet. But since we're coming out with a tool, I thought, well, I'll just use my tool for you. The new tool that Stampin' Up! Has in the catalog has 4 tips on this end, two double-sided tips, so you pull it out and insert the other sides just like you would a multi-purpose screwdriver, and then it's got a second double-sided tip also. And then on this tip here is like some little sticky putty, so you can kind of pick things up. Let's see. So it kind of sticks to, it would work better for small things like sequins and things. So it just has a little bit of sticky stuff on the end. So really neat tool. I'm excited that we're going to have that coming up. So there's my little embellishment. And then I have my card front here. And while we've been doing this, our card that we glued together is good, solid, and dried now. And we can go ahead and stick our card front on the base. I'm going to give it some extra glue here because there's so many layers on top of it. And since this one is so heavy, I think I'll use the liquid glue to get it on there as well. Now, I may have gone a little too wide for my card, and then I could just catty corner my greeting a little bit. Now, this will fit in a standard size envelope, but it's very thick, so you're going to need extra postage if you mail this, just because it's going to be heavy and thick. But there is your Twist and Pop card. And there's my original Twist and Pop card. Isn't that fun? I just think that's really neat. So it takes just a minute to get closed. There you go. So guys, thanks for sticking with me for this lengthy tutorial. I hope that you will attempt to do this on your own. I've given you those dimensions for all the pieces and hopefully clear instructions so that you can do one yourself. And this is Sunny Sky Stamps channel, so remember the 3 S's. Shop, share, and subscribe, and go have some fun crafting today.